The conference room at Harbor Point Ventures held 12 people, but my mother's voice filled every corner. She stood at the head of the mahogany table, laser pointer in hand, walking through the quarterly projections for Meridian Therapeutics. As you can see, our lead compound MT-847 is on track for phase 3 trials next quarter, she said, clicking to the next slide. My son Marcus has done an exceptional job positioning us for FDA approval. Marcus sat 2 seats down from her, wearing the navy Tom Ford suit Mom had bought him last month. He nodded seriously as the investors took notes. At 28, he looked the part, Harvard MBA, confident smile, firm handshake. I stood against the back wall in my lab coat, having been pulled from work 20 minutes earlier. Emily, come upstairs for the investor meeting, Mom had texted. Professional appearance please. I hadn't had time to change. While Marcus presented in designer clothes, I wore the same outfit I'd been wearing since 6 a.m. when I'd arrived to check the stability data on our clinical samples. And your daughter? Asked Patricia Huang from Redwood Capital. What's her role, Emily? Mom glanced back at me dismissively. She works in the lab. Quality control, testing, that sort of thing. Important work, of course, but Marcus handles the business strategy. Marcus stood and shook hands with each investor. We're very excited about the commercial potential once we clear regulatory hurdles, he said smoothly. The market research shows significant demand in the oncology space. I said nothing. I'd learned years ago that correcting my mother in front of others only made things worse. The meeting wrapped up at 4:30. Mom scheduled dinner with the Redwood Capital team for next week. Marcus promised to send over the updated financial models. The investors filed out, impressed by what they'd seen. Good work, Marcus, Mom said, squeezing his shoulder. You handled their questions perfectly. Thanks, Mom. He loosened his tie. I think they're ready to commit to the Series C. I turned to leave. Emily, Mom called out. You can go back to your lab now. And next time, please dress more professionally for investor meetings. I was running the stability protocol, I said quietly. You told me to come up immediately. Well, keep a blazer in your office or something. I walked back down to the 3rd floor, where the real work happened. Where I'd been working for the past 6 years since finishing my PhD in pharmaceutical chemistry at MIT. Where I'd spent 70-hour weeks developing MT-847 from initial compound synthesis to clinical candidate. My phone buzzed at 5:47 p.m., just as I was reviewing the latest batch records. Unknown number. Washington, D.C. area code. Dr. Emily Hartwell. A woman's voice asked. Speaking. This is Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, from the FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. I'm calling regarding your new drug application for MT-847. My heart rate jumped. Yes, what do you need? We're ready to schedule your advisory committee meeting. This is excellent news. We're moving your application forward ahead of schedule. However, we need the CEO's signature on the formal acceptance documents by 5 p.m. tomorrow to hold your slot. I'll make sure you get it, I said. Great. I'm emailing the documents now to the registered CEO email address. We need the signed originals couriered to our office by tomorrow afternoon. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Okonkwo. I hung up and checked my email. The message was there, sent to CEO@meridiantherapeutics.com. The email address I'd registered when I'd incorporated the company 7 years ago. The email address that came to my inbox. I walked upstairs to Mom's office. She and Marcus were celebrating with scotch. The FDA just called, I said from the doorway. We got the advisory committee date. They need CEO's signature by tomorrow at 5 p.m. Excellent. Mom stood up. Marcus, you'll need to fly to DC tomorrow morning to deliver it in person. Make an impression. I'll handle the signature tonight, I said. It needs to be couriered by tomorrow afternoon. Just forward it to Marcus's email. Mom said. He'll take care of everything. It was sent to the CEO's registered email address, I said carefully. Mine, Mom frowned. What do you mean yours? I'm the CEO of Meridian Therapeutics. I incorporated the company. I filed the IND application. My name is on all the FDA paperwork. The room went silent. Marcus set down his scotch glass. That doesn't make sense. I've been running the business operations for 2 years. You've been running the fundraising presentations, I said. I've been running the company. Mom's face hardened. Emily, don't be ridiculous. Marcus has his MBA. He handles the investors, the board meetings, the strategic planning. Mom, I can show you the incorporation documents right now. I can show you the FDA registration. I can show you every NDA submission with my signature as CEO. Then we need to fix this immediately. Mom said, transfer the CEO title to Marcus tonight. He should be the one meeting with the FDA. I'm not transferring anything. I built this company. I developed the drug. I filed the applications. I wrote the clinical protocols. Marcus gave PowerPoint presentations. Those presentations raised $45 million. Marcus said sharply, using my science, my data, my drug. Mom walked around her desk. Emily, sweetheart, you're a brilliant scientist. But you don't have business training. You don't have leadership experience. You're not CEO material. I've been CEO for 7 years. Then you've been playing at it. Marcus is the professional here. I looked at my brother. We'd grown up in the same house, gone to good schools, both earned advanced degrees. The difference was that his degrees said MBA, and mine said PhD. His took 2 years, mine took 6. His cost $200,000. Mine I'd earned while doing research that led to 3 patents. The FDA doesn't care about his MBA. I said. They care about who's legally responsible for the drug application. That's me. This is absurd, Mom said. We'll call the FDA tomorrow and explain there was an administrative error. We'll have them reissue everything in Marcus's name. You can't just reissue 7 years of regulatory filings. The CEO is the CEO. The investigational new drug application, the clinical trial authorizations, the manufacturing protocols, all under my signature. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll call Dad. He'll know how to handle this. Dad's a real estate attorney. I said. This is pharmaceutical law, but Marcus was already dialing. Our father, founding partner at Hartwell and Associates, specialized in commercial real estate. He knew nothing about FDA regulations. I left them arguing and went back to my lab. The next morning, I arrived at 6 a.m. and found Mom already in her office. She'd clearly been there for hours. I spoke with our corporate attorney, she said without preamble. He confirmed that yes, technically you're listed as CEO on the paperwork. But he says we can file amended documents. Not with the FDA, you can't. Not in the middle of an active new drug application. Then we'll withdraw the application and refile it correctly. I stared at her. Withdraw it. Do you understand what you're saying? We'd lose our advisory committee date. We'd go back to the end of the queue. That's another 18 months minimum. Our investors will pull out. Our clinical trial sites will move on to other studies. We'll lose everything. Then sign the CEO title over to Marcus and we'll proceed. No. Emily, don't be stubborn about this. I'm not being stubborn. I'm being the CEO. And the CEO's decision is that we're moving forward with the advisory committee meeting as scheduled. Mom's face flushed. You're going to ruin this company with your pride. My pride. I developed MT-847 in a rented lab space with $50,000 of my own money from my PhD fellowship. I spent 3 years optimizing the formulation. I recruited the clinical investigators. I wrote the protocols. Where was Marcus then? He was getting his MBA so he could help you commercialize. He was taking ski trips to Aspen and posting on Instagram. Don't rewrite history. The door opened. Marcus walked in, followed by our father. Emily, Dad said in his courtroom voice. Your mother called me last night very upset. We need to discuss this situation rationally. There's nothing to discuss. I'm signing the FDA documents today and couriering them to DC. But you understand how this looks. Dad said. Marcus has been the face of this company. He's built relationships with every investor. He's crafted the entire commercial strategy, using my science. Science that means nothing without business execution, Marcus said. You can develop the best drug in the world, but if you can't raise capital, build partnerships, navigate commercial strategy, I raised the first $2 million. I interrupted. I negotiated our manufacturing partnership. I built the relationship with our clinical research organization. What exactly have you navigated besides investor dinners? This is exactly why you shouldn't be CEO. Mom said. You're too emotional. You take everything personally. You literally told investors yesterday that I just work in the lab. You introduced Marcus as if he runs the company. And when I correct the record, I'm emotional. Dad held up his hands. Let's all take a breath. Emily, no one is diminishing your contributions. But the reality is that a pharmaceutical company needs strong business leadership. Your expertise is in chemistry, not commerce. Then why did I spend 6 months learning GMP regulations? Why did I take courses in clinical trial design? Why did I negotiate our licensing agreements? You did that? Marcus asked. Yes. All of it, while you were giving presentations. Presentations that secured funding. With my data. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Every slide you showed, every projection you made, every milestone you promised, all based on work I did in the lab that you all seem to think is just quality control. The room fell silent. Sign the documents, Mom said finally. We'll discuss the organizational structure after the FDA meeting. There's nothing to discuss. I'm the CEO. That's not changing. Then you're making a serious mistake, Dad said. Marcus is ready to lead this company to commercial success. You're a scientist who's gotten in over her head. I looked at the three of them. My mother, who'd started attending my board meetings a year ago, and apparently decided she knew better. My brother, who'd given TED Talk-style presentations without ever understanding the underlying science. My father, who thought pharmaceutical regulation worked like zoning permits. The documents need to be couriered by 5 p.m., I said. I'll handle it. I walked out. At 9 a.m., I called an emergency board meeting. Meridian Therapeutics had 5 board members. Myself, my mother, Marcus, and 2 independent directors we'd added during Series B funding. Dr. James Wu, former Pfizer executive, and Linda Morrison, veteran biotech CFO. They joined by video call. Thank you for making time on short notice, I said. We received FDA approval for our advisory committee date. However, there's been some confusion about company leadership that needs to be addressed immediately. I shared my screen. Incorporation documents, FDA registrations, IND applications, clinical trial authorizations. Every document had the same signature: Dr. Emily Hartwell, Chief Executive Officer. I incorporated Meridian 7 years ago. I continued. I've served as CEO since inception. Yesterday, during an investor meeting, my mother introduced my brother Marcus as if he runs the company. When the FDA called requesting CEO signature on critical documents, there was confusion about who holds that title. Dr. Wu leaned forward. Emily, I've reviewed every board package for 2 years. Your signature is on all filings. There's no confusion from a legal standpoint. The confusion is internal, Linda Morrison said, looking directly at my mother. Patricia, you've been introducing Marcus as CEO. Mom straightened in her chair. Marcus handles our investor relations and commercial strategy. I thought it would be simpler for external audiences. Simpler than what? The truth? Linda's voice was sharp. Emily is CEO. That's public record. It's on our website. It's in our SEC filings. What exactly have you been telling investors? That Marcus leads the business operations while Emily handles the science. Did you ever explicitly say Marcus is CEO? Dr. Wu asked. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I may have let some investors assume. Did you correct them when they made that assumption? Linda asked. Silence. This is securities fraud territory. Dr. Wu said flatly. If investors committed capital based on misrepresentation of company leadership, no one misrepresented anything, Mom said quickly. We simply emphasized Marcus's strengths in investor presentations, while minimizing Emily's role as CEO. Linda said, during a critical FDA approval process. While she's been doing the actual work of running this company. I pulled up the investor term sheet from yesterday's meeting. Harbor Point Ventures is preparing to lead our Series C. Their notes from yesterday's meeting specifically mentioned strong leadership under Marcus Hartwell as a key investment factor. Dr. Doliu's face darkened. Did you sign anything? No. The meeting was preliminary. Good. Because we need to send immediate clarification to every investor about actual company leadership before anyone commits capital. This is ridiculous. Mom said. We're derailing our fundraising over semantics. It's not semantics. Linda interrupted. It's corporate governance. Emily is CEO. She's always been CEO. She's the one who built this company and developed this drug. And now she's the one who needs to sign FDA documents and represent this company to the advisory committee. The advisory committee will want to see business leadership, Marcus argued. They'll want to know we can commercialize successfully. The advisory committee evaluates drug safety and efficacy, Dr. Wu said. They want to see the CEO, who understands the science, knows the clinical data, and can answer technical questions. That's Emily. My mother stood up. This is a mistake. Emily doesn't have the presence, the gravitas. The presence to do what? Linda's voice was ice. To present her own work. To answer questions about a drug she invented. Please. I move that the board formally reaffirm Emily Hartwell as Chief Executive Officer, Wu said, and that we require immediate correction of any investor communications that suggest otherwise. Second, Linda said. The vote was 3-2. Dr. Wu, Linda and I voted yes. Mom and Marcus voted no. It's decided. I said. I'll be signing the FDA documents and presenting to the advisory committee as CEO of Meridian Therapeutics. Mom and Marcus left the video call without another word. I couried the signed documents to the FDA that afternoon. Dr. Okonkwo confirmed receipt and scheduled our advisory committee meeting for 6 weeks out. The next morning, I drafted a company-wide email. Dear Meridian team, I want to clarify my role as we enter this exciting phase of FDA review. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Therapeutics and have been since incorporation. I look forward to leading our team through the approval process and beyond. Dr. Emily Hartwell, CEO. I also drafted investor communications for Dr. Wu and Linda to review, clarifying company leadership structure before Harbor Point or anyone else committed capital based on false assumptions. Mom didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. Marcus sent one text. You've always been jealous that I could succeed without hiding in a lab. I didn't respond. I was too busy preparing for the advisory committee presentation. 6 weeks later, I stood in front of the FDA Oncology Drugs Advisory Committee in a conference room in Silver Spring, Maryland. 15 committee members sat at a U-shaped table. FDA staff lined the walls. Media representatives sat in the gallery. I wore a navy suit, not designer, just professional. I'd spent the previous week rehearsing every slide, every data point, every potential question. Dr. Hartwell, the committee chair said, please present your data on MT-847 for the treatment of platinum-resistant ovarian cancer. I clicked to the first slide. For 90 minutes, I walked them through 7 years of work. The initial discovery of MT-847's mechanism of action. The optimization process that took 3 years and 847 iterations. That's why we named it that. The preclinical studies showing selective targeting of cancer cells. The Phase 1 safety data. The Phase 2 efficacy results showing 43% response rate in a patient population, where standard options achieve 12%. I knew every molecule, every patient, every data point. The questions came rapid fire. I answered each one precisely, citing specific studies, specific patients, specific molecular mechanisms. Dr. Hartwell, one committee member asked, how confident are you in your manufacturing quality controls? Extremely confident. I developed our analytical methods personally and validated them across 3 different manufacturing batches. Our stability data shows no degradation over 24 months. I can show you the specific assay results if you'd like. Another question. What about the dose modifications in elderly patients? We enrolled 47 patients over 70 in our Phase 2 trial. The data showed comparable efficacy, with appropriate dose adjustments based on renal function. I can walk you through our dosing algorithm. After 2 hours, the chair called for a vote. The committee voted 13% to recommend approval. I sat down, hands shaking, as the reality hit. We'd done it. MT-847 was going to become a real medicine. For real patients. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda Morrison. Congratulations, CEO. You just changed oncology. Another from Dr. Wu. That was the most technically competent presentation I've ever seen at an advisory committee. This is why scientists should run drug companies. Nothing from Mom or Marcus. The formal FDA approval letter arrived 6 weeks later. I was in the lab when my assistant brought it up. Dr. Hartwell, this came by courier. Looks important. I opened it. The FDA has approved new drug application 214/847 for MT-847, Meridian 847, for the treatment of platinum-resistant ovarian cancer. Congratulations to you and your team. I walked upstairs to Mom's office. She was on the phone, but hung up when she saw my face. We got approval, I said, holding up the letter. That's wonderful, Emily. Really wonderful. Her voice was stiff. I couldn't have done it without the team here. Everyone worked incredibly hard.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure you'll want to plan a celebration. I studied her face. My mother, who'd pushed Marcus forward at every opportunity, who'd minimized my work as just the lab, who'd voted against reaffirming me as CEO. I want you to know something, I said. When I started this company, I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because I saw patients dying and thought I could help. That's still why I do this. I know that, sweetheart. But I also need you to know that I'm not just working in the lab. I'm running a pharmaceutical company. I'm the CEO, not because of a technicality or paperwork, but because I've been doing the work all along. Mom was quiet for a long moment. You're right, she said finally. I underestimated you. I kept thinking Marcus was better suited because he presents well, because he has the MBA, because, she trailed off, because he's male. I finished. She didn't deny it. I'm proud of you, Emily. I should have said that 7 years ago. I should have said it every day since. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. I turned to leave. Emily? Yes. What happens now? With the company. Now we commercialize. We get MT-847 to patients. We start work on our next compound. We build something that actually helps people. And Marcus can stay in investor relations if he wants. But he needs to be clear about his role, and he needs to stop pretending to be something he's not. Fair enough. I walked back down to my lab, where my team was celebrating, with cheap champagne and grocery store cupcakes. These were the people who'd believed in the science, who'd run experiments at midnight, who'd never cared about titles. Speech, someone called out. I raised my plastic cup. 7 years ago, I had an idea, and a rented lab bench. Today we have FDA approval for a drug that's going to help patients who desperately need options. We did this. Together. Thank you for believing in the work. They cheered. My phone buzzed with an email from Harbor Point Ventures. Dr. Hartwell, congratulations on your FDA approval. We'd like to move forward with Series C funding under your leadership. Can we schedule a call? I smiled and typed back. Absolutely. I'm the CEO. Let's talk.